Uh-oh.
Sorry, 1 second. My mom just walked in. Sorry. Okay. My apologies for the wait. This is a scene in Kansas. Today we have just the changelings in Mordecai's shop. From what I've been told, Willa is already there.
Yes.
So Aurelius, going by his Fey name, has made tea.
And she'll say, "Oh, thank you. What kind of tea?"
A personal favorite of mine, Earl Grey.
Earl Grey. I never tried it. Usually a chamomile person.
He'll nod. Sam, that's understandable.
She'll smile at that, and she'll start. She'll start sipping at the tea. You know that book you let me buy about aromancy. It's actually been somewhat helpful.
I'm glad you are receiving use from it.
Yeah. Reason why, and she kind of looks outside for a second, and I just imagine that they're really big clouds. Oh, go ahead.
And sees Karina.
And she'll, have her eyebrows high and just wave at Karina.
Karina waves back and smiles.
I kind of like.
Karina's biologically capable of waving. I've learned something new.
She kind of has tea in her hand and kind of almost gestures in a way of want to come in.
She starts making her way up.
She'll do the sup nod and say, "Hey, Karina."
Hello, Willa. Just good to see you.
It's good to see you too. How everything going well for you?
Yes. Everything is going quite well.
Awesome. What's the well that's been going? And then she starts taking a sip of her tea. Not bad.
I am learning quite a bit. I am happy. The fact that I am learning as much as I am about things.
I shall say, that's good. What have you been learning about? I've been learning too.
Humans and their odd cultures fascinate me.
There are many of them. Many, many, many. I assume the Fae have many, 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 many cultures as well.
Yes.
Just as the beep boop. Is it a beep boop or is it a bell that's over the door? It's one or the other.
It's a bell.
Okay. Just as the bell stops dingling, or jingling, you will hear changelings tend to mirror the cultures that they represent. They do not create so much as they serve as the sounding board for what is.
Kind of like the idea of a muse?
Not an incorrect assessment.
Well, okay. Well, what is it? What is it then?
Triori will walk in, and he's kind of pulling his gloves down, flexing his hand in, as he's putting his gloves on. And he will say, contemplate this. I have been asked numerous times why it is that the changelings still use a feudal caste-based hierarchy. The fact of the matter is that humans still use this, or sorry, the fact is that changelings still use this system as it is what humans dream about. Everyone dreams to be the dashing knight or the great lord who sits on the throne. Thus it is we still represent the dreams in that way, and the dreaming has come to embrace us in that manner. That is why our ranks matter to the dreaming's own inherency.
She kind of thinks about that and she says, "Are you sure that's what people dream about?"
Not all, but enough to matter.
She kind of just seems, she takes that in and sinks it in. "Oh, Karina, have you met Traore yet?"
Yes,
Advice?
we are acquainted.
Traore's eyes will immediately flick to the fucking ass bruise on her neck going right up the side of her face. Is that still probably there?
It's probably faded since they were in a freehold.
Oh yeah, they were. It's all good.
They were freehold.
Hashtag Traore does not beat women. Anyway.
Okay.
No, he only beats commoners.
But it's called training when two she kick the shit out of each other. It's called corporal punishment when a she kicks the crap out of a commoner.
Wish the fuck you would.
Bring it!
What was that? You used my first name. Roll initiative.
No, I am indeed acquainted with Lady Stormfury. She provides rather stimulating conversation and an interesting perspective. But then again, so I find do all of the scions of the North.
She'll nod at that. So, Karina,
Yes.
going back to what I asked you, what has been the oddest culture you've found so far to you?
She looks down and thinks. Oh shit, I've got a good one out of character. This is going to be a hilarious one.
Why is it that they call the coffee weird Spanish words? Why? No.
That's like the third or fourth weirdest one. The weirdest one is going to be the following. I am unsure with humans and their odd desires to see women be pleased by monsters of tentacles. Cannot say that I am the most comfortable with it.
I can actually give you an answer to that. Apparently, the reason was that kind of stuff was invented was because that kind of material, normal material with sex, was like the genitalia has to be blurred. So they did a loophole around that by basically having tentacle monsters have sex with girls instead, and it blew up.
The human body, all bodies, whether they be fey or mortal or natural things, why censor that?
I guess for a long time, well, as far as I know, it was because she's like trying to think. As far as I know, it was because. Sorry, I'm just having a hard time remembering. It was because I believe it. it had to do with... I know that chimps are very different in that way, and humans tend to be like kind of the opposite of them when it comes to covering and clothing themselves and not being too exposing themselves like that very often. Could have been because of the cultures of certain religious practices that came about in the Middle Ages. It could have been because of other reasons. I'm not quite sure. People just find it vulgar. It's very complicated.
Shiori, leaning on his cane, will kind of close his eyes very briefly and will say, and I would ask you, in that case, if that is complicated, what is simple?
There is not very much to me in this world that is more simple than two sentient beings doing what they must.
It's admittedly strange. I forgot the reason in that country why genitalia is blurred. Here, you can find porn that's not blurred like that. And in other countries, it's mainly in Japan, I believe.
She nods.
I'm not sure about other countries.
But
Yeah, I do admit it is definitely very weird. I can agree with you on that one.
But yes, you get the joys of having to research what it is humanity has distorted itself into during your absence.
She just kind of shakes her head. She just says, I find it very disappointing.
We came along in some ways. We fell in others. Still got a lot of work to do, I guess.
But yes, needless to say, we must face each new challenge. We must overcome it. That is the nature of being at this point. And unfortunately, the nature of being is not made any easier by the machinations and ignorances of the young.
The machinations and of the young?
Machinations and ignorances of the young.
And what are some examples?
Well, what I'm currently having to deal with, because Miss Willa, I will ask you a simple question.
Very well.
If you, as an individual, wish to adopt a child legally in the Grey World, wish to have it signed, sealed, and delivered via the courts, an individual who has no parents of which to speak, and more importantly, no paperwork as to ever existing, what complications do you foresee?
Okay. Well, you're probably going to have to find a way to. Oh, they're not going to have citizenship, and then on top of that, if there's no directory for who they were in the system, then they're going to have to. Oh, I don't even know. Uh, you probably have to give them an identity first.
Correct.
Picture, name, and all that, where they work. Then you can probably adopt them. That's if they're able. And then on top of that, they'll probably have to get citizenship in the country, although I'm not sure about that if they've been born here. The thing is, it's hard to prove that if... Yeah.
Then I would ask you to layer the next layer of complications over it. That the child, if it is indeed a citizen, has been born. However, due to the nature of its existence as one of us, and has been taken via the dreaming, it could be older or younger than it should be for whatever records the grey world has to offer. Not only this, that is assuming it possesses any records. There are the possibilities of kin being found who may ask questions. There are many possibilities. I am currently attempting to smooth out the fact that one of us, who shall remain nameless, decided it would be an excellent idea to simply contact the police and the legal services and now have an interview scheduled with them as it pertains to adopting said individual, with none of the paperwork, none of the legal mumbo-jumbo, not even secure themselves legal representation before the fact. And one wrong word breaks the sheet.
That's not good. That's really not good.
Yes, I am aware. I suggest, as a matter of fact, that is why I am here.
Okay. Well, specifically, why are you here?
Well, out of character, I don't think Kim is here.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, you're back. Okay.
Aurelius is totally just lurking around.
By the way, out of character question, Kim, what is high tea to a Slua?
Like, one of the greatest fucking things in the world.
Okay, I'm asking just like, what is it?
High tea is when the various Slua, they pretty much get together. They have tea, and they gossip.
It's literally they just gather together to bitch.
No, not bitch. To trade secrets and contacts and information, and to have some tea. If you have the gregarious flaw, you are not invited to most high teas because you're simply so outgoing. Stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
What do you expect when you gather a whole bunch of mopey dopey little Slua together in a room and just say, "Here, have tea"?
Hilarity, of course. No. At this point, Traore will look between the two of you. Will look between Aurelius and Willa, and he will say, "I was wondering if either of you possessed the contacts necessary in order to have falsified birth information created. Slua tend to have contacts here, there, and everywhere. And Miss Willa, due to your time in incarceration, it is not beyond the shadow of a doubt that you may possess the knowledge of individuals who may be paid to provide such."
I'll be honest, I only had one friend in prison, so that's in this situation, I can't help you.
And you, Mr. Aurelius?
No, I do not. That would require me getting my hands full of bureaucracy, which is something
Yes.
I have not done.
I understand this. This is troublesome. Why is it that they could not have come to us before starting to speak to the mortal authorities?
It is very clear who this is. I find it interesting why you continue to shroud their name in mystery, considering we all know who the guardian of the puka is.
Fair. You are indeed correct. I merely say that as a point of irony. But yes. The issue becomes that if the police begin to investigate a mystery, then we become vulnerable. And unfortunately, the child is an enigma. So, going to them, it would be much easier if we could simply provide a falsified birth certificate, social security identification, etc. So the adoption proceeding would be smoother.
The thing
But
is,
we
if
cannot.
falsified birth certificate might be tricky, especially since you'll have to actually have that. If they want to verify the certificate, they'll just have to look up the numbers in the system, and something won't add up. So even if you manage to get falsified identity, they're probably going to verify it, check it in the system. If it isn't in the system, or even so you not only need someone who is able to falsify records, but also someone who could hack into the system and add them in, which
Once again, this is complicated.
yes. So, really, I think, well, do you have means to simply hide them?
The issue becomes, if they were hidden, then it will look as if this man has absconded with a child.
Yep, and those things will be missing, and so, yep, that'll be bad.
So, I am currently attempting to find a solution as opposed to more problems.
There's another idea, but it's basically a gamble. You need to check up the legalese on this and probably find a representative. But you could just tell him to be half honest, that she didn't have an identity. He decided to take care of her, and he wants to be able to find a way to officially adopt her.
I am led to understand that that is a possibility. However, in the event that takes place, what usually happens is the child is placed in the social care system until such point as the individual is deemed a fit parent. Also, he'll snap his fingers, at which point Elizabeth will step up and bow politely, and she'll say, "There's also the fact that we're living in a red state. Ultimately, if you're a single parent attempting to adopt a child, you've got more of a chance of an iceberg deciding to spontaneously melt at the heart North Pole. Sans global warming, of course."
think the thing to do is then to see if there are any changelings or Canaan that are connected to child services, and make sure that they're the ones who take care of Lucy. I mean, with how vast your society seems to be, there must be somebody. And it would make sense, especially considering chrysalises and stuff like that, that there would be either people like me or other changelings who work in that place.
Would you mind terribly if I was to trouble you, Mr. Aurelius, for a cup of your tea?
Of course not. And he'll make him a cup of tea and hand it to him.
Thank you. Is it just a normal kind of breakfast blend tea?
It's Earl Grey.
Excellent. He will take it and sip it, for he says, I am forever amused at the concept that a single sentence could make life so much more difficult or easy depending on the time in which it is said and the person to whom it is said.
What are you referring to?
Well, if someone had simply said and constructed the sentence I said to you to Mr. Rousseau before he went and decided to inform the mortal authorities, we would have at least more time in order to present a convincing case, as opposed to now having to do this on the fly, not just to keep his proverbial existence from the fire, but to make sure that there are no slip-ups and the right of ignorance is not breached. I don't hold the police services in Kansas to a very high esteem. However, if they find a child who is literally a conundrum and does not exist, that causes questions.
Most likely. Depending on all sorts of things could happen. I don't know what to tell you.
And of course, another issue is posed. I believe in order to create this meeting, they have had to enter at least one area of a controlled environment. They have had to enter one of the protocol agencies, be it the police or a social care service, which means, of course, that they will have footage of them on CCTV camera, pictures, etc. Those places are riddled with it.
Yep, they absolutely are.
That means we can't even very quietly get them out of the state without the pictures being shown if the meetings are missed and the child disappears.
There could just be going with the concept of them going missing, the either of them, and just everyone laying low, not doing a damn thing, no magic, no funny business, don't give any reason for any others, I guess you could call them supernatural groups, to suspect you, and just wait. We know the truth. No child actually was kidnapped. No, Corey isn't, I don't think, the one to kidnap a girl. It'll be on the news for a time and people forget about it after 2 weeks.
Kim, are any of the pets in the room?
The only ones you can see right now is a little hog-nosed snake that's kind of wrapped around Aurelius's hand as he's moving around the shop.
Oh. Is he also a grumpy noodle?
No.
Eh.
Because there are horrible news stories every day, and it'll probably cause a big roar for maybe about 2 weeks. But I hate to be brash, but there are I can't even count how many missing children are out there.
Yes. However, if they retrace Mr. Russo's steps, it brings him into our establishments, into our homes, and into our freeholds.
That's true too. Well, seems to generally be trying to think of a solution here. Is there any way to... No, but then that'll be suspicious. I would say this then. Can you find Canaan who are in the law, Child Protective Services, and the police here in Kansas? Because you might be able to coordinate something if you have all three of those.
There is always the other option. If it will involve less questions, the child can simply be given to the social care services. Out of character, Ethan is currently asking how banal that is, so if it's like a death sentence, he probably won't have said that.
She said, couldn't banality or couldn't that be a problem? Because if Lucy gets stuck in an orphanage, that's a mixed bag.
I just need to step away for a few seconds, guys. I'll be back in a few.
Okay. Sure, he goes to the washroom, or he makes a call. She'll look to Aurelius and say, "You got any ideas?"
He will kind of think for a moment. Then again, he's always thinking, so it's kind of like a bad, not too good thing to say. And he'll say, honestly, you could all be overthinking this. And I can't believe that anyone would possibly think of the idea of allowing a child to go into social services, to allow them to go into an orphanage. It is appalling.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was thinking. If you had guys at Changelings in the business, I'm sure it would probably make that problem a lot less of a problem. But I don't think I that would be on your guys'
finger and say, do you believe this is a problem, or do you see it as a problem because Traori is making it one?
If Lucy doesn't have any kind of an identity and he goes over to get adoption to try and adopt her legally and officially, that can raise a lot of eyebrows. And I'm not sure.
Has anyone tried talking to him? Or are we just going to scheme and plan behind his back without knowing if he has a plan first?
He said it in your He said it in your store not a few days ago that he had no idea as to practicalities when I raised it to him. He just did it.
Education is a wonderful thing, as I'm sure you would know. Educating a person is a lot better than scheming behind their back because
I'm not.
You're uneducated on.
I'm not scheming. I'm planning for the future. I have given him.
Many
Isn't
can see
that aren't those two things basically the same thing?
They are.
Isn't that just a euphemism? Look, I'm not trying to scheme. I literally want to help. If this does cause a problem and this is a threat, I mean, if you want, I think the best thing to do, Traori, which Aurelius here has made a point, that you should probably maybe talk to Corey and coordinate this.
I already have done. I'm merely coming up with contingencies.
Very well. Didn't know that.
The person who walks into a situation with only one plan has but one chance to see it succeed. The person who walks into a situation with many plans has many backups.
Or you just waste time overthinking.
Traori, you can see there's a flash of what could be akin to amusement in his eyes for a moment before he says, "Indeed, I would rather overthink a situation than drastically underthink it."
Or you could make your life and everyone else's lives a lot easier and just look into the future.
The future and the tapestry are complicated.
Trust me, I know. He nods his head as he says, "Yes, I have no doubt. We shall see what we shall see when the time comes. As I said, I came here in order to ascertain if falsified papers could be acquired. They apparently cannot from this avenue." This is an occult shop, not a government building.
As I've said, I am led to understand Slua have eyes and ears everywhere. My apologies.
There's a difference between eyes and ears everywhere and having the influence everywhere.
I'm not necessarily asking for your influence. I'm asking for a name, if you possess it, so we may all walk in the right direction.
Willa just kind of looks between you almost with there's a mixture of interest and very, very slight amusement.
Then perhaps you should phrase your words better, because that is not the meaning that I was getting from you.
My apologies. Do you possess the name of an individual who would be capable of doing what needs to be done in order to ascertain this girl and identity?
As you said, we have eyes and ears everywhere, but it takes time to speak with them.
I understand. Time is the one luxury we possess some of, as it will be a few more insert time. I don't know if it's going to be weeks, days, whatever till the thing. It will happen whenever the date happens. And he will say, if you can find me a name, then I will happily take Corey and we will speak to the individual whom you name.
He will nod and say, I will see what I can do, but I would still require something in return.
What is it you desire?
I suppose that will have to be seen with how long it takes me to get the information.
Of course. If you can come with me, or if you can come up with a fair price to me, then we will find it amenable and shall make an accord. Does that seem reasonable?
Perhaps.
Wonderful. In that case, Triori kind of does a very brief head inclination to the room. I have other business to attend to this evening, so I shall take my leave.
Very well. Good seeing you, Triori. Have a good one.
A pleasure, as always, Miss Willow. And you, Mr. Aurelius, I do wish you the best of luck.
He'll incline his head slightly.
Cool. And with that, Triori will turn on his heel and proceed to leave. Sorry, guys, I'm being called away to do stuff, so I will talk to you all later.
See you, man. Look to Aurelius. Let me know if you need any help with that. Not sure how I could, but if you think I can help. And she just shrugs.
When Traori leaves, he kind of breathes a soft sigh of relief. And then he'll look back over to Willa and say, if you wish to help, that is up to you, but I should, for the most part, be able to do this on my own. My contacts are many and they are everywhere. I simply have to ask them.
She'll nod, and she'll say, well, you got my number. And she'll smile.
That I do, Miss Snow. I have a question, if you don't mind indulging me.
She'll nod, as in to say yes.
What has gone on in the city recently? In the supernatural community, of course. I've kept my head down and out of that, but I have read the news of the explosions in Topeka and things of that nature, but is there a supernatural component to all of this?
I believe there's a lot of events happened in Gage Park in Topeka City. That's where this whole explosion happened and some lions went missing. Apparently even there were some assaults. I believe almost all of them had, from my, hearing around in the Changeling bar and stuff like that, that supernaturals were involved in most of those things. As for specific events, I'll be honest with you, I try to pay attention, but... And she genuinely tries to think. I was introduced to all this a month ago. And as far as I know... She's like, out of character. I'm trying to remember, but Willow hasn't been in a lot. So she'll just say in character, I'm not 100% sure. I don't think I'm the one to ask.
Then do you know of someone I could ask?
There's Corey. I'm sure Lucy could tell you, but then again... And then she thinks to herself, there's Traore himself, the Baron. Not sure what John Visconti is up to, but you could talk to him. He's she gives her general directions of where his freehold is, where to find him. Trust me, you can't miss it. There was Cece and Olaf, who were kind of, I guess you could say, I don't really know what to say, call them. But anyway, they were very helpful friends, but I think they're out of town now. Otherwise, I would have said you should have talked to them.
Sorry. My apologies.
But those are my contacts.
I'll nod and say, I see. Well, I am sorry to hear that your friends have left.
She shrugs. There have been some whisperings about, I don't know. Apparently the freehold that I'm bereaved of. I generally don't understand the vernacular, but there seems to be some controversy around it.
I can see why.
Well, why is that?
You are not a Cathane. You are a Canane, holding over something that nobles prefer to rule. A small, kind of sad smile will play across his face, and he'll say, it's almost spitting in the face of the nobles, and that is amusing.
I don't know.
I am surprised of what many find amusing nowadays. Karina snaps back. She was daydreaming for a good long while.
Oh, you're back in Karina. You seem to have gone your own little world.
Yes, it happens sometimes.
I don't blame you. Happens with me too, here and there. I look to Aurelius. Well, I guess whatever happens in regards to that happens.
If they do, how to put this politely, remove you from your freehold or the one you were caring for, do allow me to know. And until you are able to find a place to stay, you are free to accommodate one of the rooms in my freehold.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And that goes for anyone else who needs to stay in a warm, dry place. Freeholds are something that are meant to be shared, I suppose one could say. Times are getting darker. My bad.
That's very kind of you.
He'll shrug and say, times are getting darker. We need to stick together. And unfortunately, the rift between the commoners and the nobles seems to only be getting wider and wider. No offense, of course, Lady Stormfury.
None taken, however, I must disagree.
Perhaps we have seen it two different ways then.
How do you disagree, Karina?
This is a time of unprecedented progressivism. The fact that commoners can even hold titles is something that was unthinkable. Now it is happening.
Why was it so unthinkable?
Because commoners are not considered leaders.
Why?
Because they are commoners. Well, it seems to get the impression that this is almost like something super obvious.
She'll just say, so? Who's to say?
Not their place.
Why?
Because there is already a kith that is made for leadership.
Why don't you guys don't want any help? Why do all the leading yourselves? Seems like a big stress on you guys.
She'll shrug.
She'll kind of just look between Aurelius and...
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I didn't know you were thinking of something to say.
Oh, she was just going to say. A knocker only replies with hostility if you attempt to interfere with their craft. A bargain would refuse to.
All no? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Karina. Go ahead.
It is fine. I assume Slua would be quite offended to know that any other kith were trying to edge in on their purpose, as it were. Then again, I do not know them very well. She looks at Aurelius.
While each kith has their own specific quirks and things that make them excel in one way or another, that does not mean that they are exclusive.
I mean, if you're an artist, you can't mountain bike. If you're a swimmer, you can't hunt. If you're an inventor, you can't know how to shoot a gun. People are a lot more than what they are. You just have to give them the opportunity.
And the opportunity has been given.
Yep. It's pretty awesome. Glad to hear that they do.
That depends on who you ask. I hear that the ennobled commoners have far more in common with my kith than their own.
That's very interesting. Whoa. Hear that thunder? Man.
Unfortunately, one must assimilate in order to go anywhere into dealing with nobles and houses and things of that nature. How well do you believe that the knockers, if there was a knocker baron, how long do you think anyone under their barony would be able to sit and honestly tolerate the screaming and the rants that they would do? Not many, not for long. And so they must assimilate and change.
Yeah. But sometimes you can also, if you change a little, those around you might change a little. Just have to be careful not to make yourself too malleable. Adapt to your environment. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off Willa. Thought she was done.
Adapt to your environment. And along the way, maybe you can change it to make it more hospitable to you and to those around you.
I would say that there is a difference between adapting to a new place in society and forgetting who you are in the process.
Yeah, that would probably be a problem.
The knocker baron, in your example, he may not be able to scream and shout and rant, but he can still invent. And it is still his barony. He is allowed to swear if he wants to.
Why can't he still invent? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
She'll just say, my real question would be, how does he provide for his people?
Guess you have to ask him.
I would rather ask his subjects.
Good idea, too.
I never said that he wouldn't be able to invent. And there's only so long that the subjects will put up with verbal abuse before it becomes tiring. After all, how long do you honestly enjoy sitting in the presence of a knocker? Very true to their unfortunate flaw.
I haven't been in the presence of a knocker for quite a while. I would like to again, though.
There's one in a nearby barony. Perhaps you could speak with them.
I'll make a note to do so.
If you give me a moment, I will give you the name. Let me look it up, because I know I've seen it.
Awesome.
The Barony of the Copper Dome. There's a Squire Devon Smith, a knocker of House Leon, or Leonin.
Well, there you go.
I will speak to him then.
You seem, you enjoy leading, Karina?
Hmm. She considers that. I would not say that I enjoy it in the same way as I like to have a bow in my hands, or in the same way that I like to read my books. I enjoy seeing others prosper, and I enjoy seeing others be able to express their free will, or at the very least, their free will to have an opinion.
Is that why you? Is leadership your tool to make that happen?
Doesn't have to be me in leadership.
That's true.
Though people quite often look to me for it.
As something that's an embodiment, or at least is a kith like yours meant to lead, from the books I've been reading, at least by the dreaming. What would you say? What would you change? How would you change the leadership of most organizations here in America? The government, corporations, small businesses, nonprofits. What's the one biggest thing that you would change?
Those that are in charge are too focused on themselves, and they are too focused on backroom agendas. They need to be focused upon performing actions that benefit those beneath them. When I say beneath them, I mean those that depend upon them, whether it is for their paycheck, whether it is for their life-saving policies.
She nods.
Everything I do isn't to serve some backroom agenda. I do not make deals such as that to get more dross or to get more money. When I do something, it is to serve a good that is greater than myself.
She nods.
That is
What?
something.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that that is something that all of those leaders miss.
They do.
Leaders willing to sacrifice for their followers.
Well, don't believe me, they sacrifice just not in the way you like. Not in the way anyone really. Very few people like. At least the victims. She says, one of the hardest arguments to make to someone is to serve the greater good. Why should he? That's one of the biggest arguments you come in when you butt heads with the leaders you speak of the world. What would your argument be to serve the greater good? How would you convince them? Besides the sword. She kind of chuckles. Because I've heard that answer a lot.
If it were another she, I would say that it is your obligation in your kith to do so. And
what if they don't take that seriously? What if that's not a good enough answer?
Then obviously someone else should be a leader.
What if the system is set up in such a way that makes that option very, very, very unlikely? Whether by power, amount of money, influence, people under your thumb, your name, your blood. How would you convince them then?
Money is a temporary thing. Money is also something that fluctuates. Temporal power such as that are things that fluctuate.
Yes, but if I make money the thing that everyone cares for, if I make money the thing that is ultimately what makes the world spin, if I make money the lifeblood of everything that we are, and I have all the control of it, I'm not sure I believe you. I would say, probably.
The old ways would simply state that I just kill those in power. Completely corrupt. Beyond some stating. But it's not an option for changelings, but for regular humans.
Unfortunately, these days, well, your average person finds the idea of hurting someone because of their position, no matter how corrupt they are. I guess they wouldn't see it as honorable. Is that the right word? Ethical? Savory?
It has nothing to do with honor. And
Well, technically, no, you're right. It actually isn't. But, sorry, go ahead.
I'll also add that humans will do quite a lot once the need presents itself.
That's true. Guess you could say your average person these days is in pretty rough shape. I don't know if you can even say that there's any human that's average. Things are very strange.
There are some that I find average. Painfully and insufferably average.
But it can change, it cannot. At least there's a possibility that it could, right? That's where you guys are around, right?
Yes.
Well, so long as you guys do that, and not the other stuff, and take on our bad sides, you should be fine. But then again, I still am very new to all this. I'm not sure how to... Still wrapping my head around all of this. I even have debates of whether I'm crazy or not. But... it is what it is, I suppose. Do you think people can be redeemed? Or I should say people who've done terrible things?
Why is redemption a factor? Someone has done terrible things, then they are a person that has done terrible things. they are likely someone that has also done great things as well.
That's true too. It would be that's the weird part, isn't it? Shameful part is sometimes great ideas are twisted. Be pretty horrible.
Yes, I can agree with that. I've seen the rhetoric on both sides of our common or noble issue. See that it has been twisted on many fronts, and I do not like it.
Yeah. Sometimes you get so entrenched in a fight, you forget to. Or get so entrenched in a belief that you forget to say, hold on a second. That's why. Hopefully, hopefully people start talking. She's just sipping her tea, sitting down in the living room area.
Aurelius is just playing with a snake.
A little smile at that. What's his name? Does he have one?
She is called Abyss.
Ooh, I like it.
Or was it? He'll pause and then just kind of. You could see this look of regret kind of fall across his face as he says, actually, no. That is someone else. I was thinking of a completely different. And he frowns. It's like, okay, so my mind is leaving me. Either way, this is actually Midori.
Just as cool. And she'll wave at Midori.
Priya will also wave.
The snake will kind of flick out its tongue. It's a tiny itty bitty baby hog nose.
Oh, if only we could do rolls and scenes, I really want to turn on Raid Sight.
Same.
Like Willa accidentally turns it on.
That would be nice, because he... there are lots of wraiths in this shop.
It's nice and cool in here.
It's better to keep the books at a colder temperature.
Yeah, that's true. That way they don't, the ink doesn't get all mushed. And I forgot there was another reason.
It helps the... I believe it stops the heat from drying out the leather.
That's right. Where do you some of them, these, do you happen... She kind of smiles. Do you have a blank tome?
Several, yes.
How much would one cost?
And he'll give an appropriate cost for a blank leather-bound book.
She'll go, fair enough. I think I'll have to get back to you on that. Because I don't think Resources 1 can get a blank tome. They're pretty expensive.
A little bit. So, he'll pause and then kind of lift up a finger and say, how about this? You... One of your parents was a Slua, correct?
I think that's what I was told. Seem to have the ability that they do to see, sees you hear and see things. Vision's sharp.
Anything else?
Apparently, I can also... I would explain some shadows I saw when I was a teenager that looked like people. Ghosts, I think.
He'll smile. Say, wonderful. And then he'll just promptly get up and head into the back again, into one of the little back rooms. A little bit later, he'll come out carrying one of the blank. What the fuck is this? Sorry, one of the blank tomes, and he'll just it's wrapped up neatly, and he'll hand it to her. Sorry.
She takes a breath, and she kind of slowly takes it. This is...
a gift.
Guess you want me to open it?
That is if you want. You already know what's in there.
I think I do. She kind of smiles and, you know, unfolds the wrapping very neatly. She, do you have an idea of what this book is? Like, is there anything special about it, or do you want me to describe it?
You know what? You can describe it.
All right. I imagine that the cover of it, there is some, they're not necessarily real ones, but they're things that look like almost drawn, embossed gems on the front that are black. And the whole book is like a black cover. The pages, when you look to the side, are black too, but when you open the pages, there's like, it's just the border. And like you can, it's grouped nicely so it focuses on the texts. And the pages are, I like to think, are pretty nice too. You know, they have that like old tomey feel kind of paper, like almost hemp instead of wood, instead of oak or trees.
Mm-hmm.
And she flips through. And she kind of looks at you. Let's just assume you got a really high perception empathy roll. You kind of get the gist that, like, lately she doesn't know what to say. She's been given a lot of gifts lately, and based on previous conversations you've had with her. And she just looks like she's not really sure. She's not sure whether to ask you whether you owe her, or so the other way around, whether she owes you.
He'll lift a finger and just quietly say, "Don't bother paying me for it. You are, or at least you are related to one of my kind, and I will take care of my own."
She smiles and says, "Thank you. I've been showed a lot of." Let me just hang on. Is this the right word? I'm a little bit high, so my brain didn't.
Altruism? Are you looking for the word altruism?
Not. I guess altruism. I've been shown a lot of. I've been shown a lot of altruism lately. Guess I'm not. Thank you.
Do you not like relying upon others?
I guess you could say I lived in an environment for a long time where no one really leaned on each other. Everything had something on each other.
I can understand that.
She kind of, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely a weird thing. She'll look over to Aurelius and just say, "Can't wait to start writing in here."
I'm sure you will put the pages to good use. More use than they would have seen sitting in my storeroom.
Definitely will. She'll kind of like wrap it back up in the paper very nicely and just kind of put it in the little knapsack she has. And she almost like pats it when she puts it in. And she'll just continue sipping her tea. And she'll look to Aurelius and say, So, Aurelius?
Yes?
As a Slua, how do you feel about what you are?
You... I don't want to say the question so much caught him off guard, but you can kind of tell it wasn't what he was expecting.
And she'll say, "Sorry if that's a bit personal. I guess it seemed right to ask at the time."
No, it is not that. It was a bad question to ask. And if you have any other questions, I am more than willing to answer them. Of course, given the topic material, it might have to be in private, but with what you've asked me, I am what I am. That is not to say that I don't envy the other kiths. The she for their looks and confidence in leading. The knockers for their creativity. The Eshu for their ability to woe and raise high the spirits with their stories. And then I realize that some are probably envious of my gifts as well. To have your senses sharpened, to be able to speak with those who have passed. But as with every gift that is given to us at our chrysalis, there is also the flaws. Never, ever, no matter how hard you try, being able to speak above a whisper is... There are times when it can be terrible. You could be crying for help, bleeding out, and no one will hear you. Because all you can do is croak out little whispers. Well, let's just say it's not easy. It really isn't. But there's a price to pay for all of the gifts we receive. Look at the knockers and their tempers, the Eshu and their wanderlust, the she and their alluring grace, I suppose one could call it. And I look at those and I think, I enjoy staying in my home. I don't like to wander. I would hate to have to wander. I certainly don't like people constantly looking at me. Things like that. And I certainly do not enjoy using atrocious language. So, of course there are times when I wish I was different. But I am very happy where I am currently in my life.
Happy to hear that. Did I interrupt you, Kim?
Nah,
Oh.
You didn't. But he will smile. Sadly, of course, because it's a Slua. And everything about him sad. He'll say, of course, there's not everyone that sees it in that light. There are more gregarious members of our kith, and they are never invited over for tea. They talk much too often.
Well, not sure what that makes me. Maybe somewhere in between.
Well, while you were born to a Slua, you are at least not yet a Slua. You have not crystallized, or had your chrysalis.
If it'll happen. But, we'll see when we'll see. And, I like what you said. You seem to have... Seems like it's definitely working out for you.
It works out for me, but there are others who it doesn't work out for, and I don't pity them, but I do not wish to be in their shoes.
Yeah.
Some great examples are the more sociable red caps, I suppose.
Oops. Drop the spoon.
Uh-oh, not the spoon. At least it wasn't the soap.
Glad it wasn't that. He'll say.
Wait, no, Aurelius wouldn't have said that in character. I thought
Oh.
it was OC. I'm sorry.
No, I thought I just decided to make the dropping sound effect an in-character thing.
Oh, my bad. No.
She would have been like, yeah, no, shit.
No, Aurelius would. Oh, no, Aurelius would not say something like that. I'm sorry.
I was like surprised. I'm like, damn, really?
Yeah, no, you would have been like, damn, I don't even say shit like that.
No, that was me. I'm sorry. I thought that was OC.
Don't worry about it. So
Okay.
she'll look at Aurelius again, and she'll say, at the very least, you definitely showed off the perks of being gave a good summarization of the perks and the drawbacks. Seems pretty cool.
He'll shrug and say, I'm glad that you find it interesting.
Well, I got this stuff, this magic in my blood, I guess. Guess I should get to know you guys. Guess I neglected it for a long time.
Well, to be honest, it isn't like most of us make ourselves readily available at all times either.
That's true too. How many of you guys are there? Like, do you guys have a population count?
His eyes will kind of... Nah, he'll kind of frown and look at his cup of tea for a moment before saying, no, I do not have a count on our population, but no doubt it is not as numerous as it could be.
Sorry to hear that. It's because of the banality, right?
That among several factors.
Guess that's true. Life's like a river.
Indeed it is. Some would say more like an uphill battle, I suppose.
Or a ladder.
That as well. If there is anything you ever need, Miss Snow, or if you ever wish to ask any other questions, don't be afraid to ask.
She'll nod. I don't know why, but it feels like the clouds have been following me. Everywhere I go, there seems to be just at least one big one nearby. She'll even, if you look outside the window, I just want to say, just for fun, like, there's a super huge cloud floating around.
Curious.
Yeah, I've been finding it weird lately.
I'm sure.
She kind of looks up at it for a little while and looks and says, she looks to both Karina and Aurelius and say, what's possible with what you guys can do? What are the limitations? That's what I'm asking, is how powerful can you be?
I'll tell you when I find out.
Fair enough. I'm guessing I'm mostly asking about changelings in general.
I'll tell you when we find out.
Fair enough. That's interesting.
It is already possible to bring the dead back to life. So that's where we're starting.
Oh. That like genuine resurrection? Genuine?
It of course has its own caveats, but unleashing an art is also possible.
Yeah, unleashing. I was reading about that. That sounds pretty crazy.
I don't suggest doing it. At least, not without the need being extraordinary. It's not something you do and it's not something that is done casually.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you only want to do it in emergencies. Genuine emergencies. Sorry, I had a character. Yeah. Okay. Sheila. Yeah, I had a character. I got nothing to say. Shit.
Lady Stormfury, do you know what has been going on in the supernatural world of late?
Unfortunately, I do not. Have you heard of the Baron's edict against our association with prodigals?
Yes, an unfortunate edict that does limit some of my customers. Actually, that limits a good bit of them.
Do you not have mundane customers?
Oh, don't get me wrong, I do, but they never buy any of the expensive things.
I guess the more supernatural folks will have the extra spend money to cash in.
Perhaps, at the very least, what can happen is if someone were to speak to the Baron and at the very least offer a degree of leniency for doing the business, that may be quite beneficial to you.
Perhaps.
She'll kind of look to everyone. Darn it.
Hmm.
You guys want to call this scene here?
I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
This has been another scene in Northeast Kansas. Thank you, players, for playing. Have a good one.